Today we'll be making chicken farfalle Alfredo. Here's what you'll need: chicken breast, mushrooms, onions, Italian style cheese, black pepper, salt. You'll need farfalle noodles. I decided to go with farfalle because it's a little bit easier to deal with than Alfredo. Half and half. You'll need some garlic and Parmesan cheese. So one thing you guys will notice from watching this video is I don't give exact measurements when it comes to certain things because I've been cooking for so long that it's almost difficult for me to come up with an exact measurement because I'm always tweaking things on the fly. So keep that in mind as you watch this video. So one of the first things you want to do before you start anything else is get your water boiling and salted for your noodles, because you can go ahead and get those done first. The noodles are going to be cooked al dente because they'll be cooked a little bit more once they get into the actual pasta. So it's okay to cook them until they're about done. They don't need to be fully done when you cook them. So the new portable range or whatever that I bought to help with my cooking videos takes quite a bit of time to kick up and get warm. So I decided to take this time to cut my vegetables ahead of time. I'm doing the mushrooms now. I know that my finger placement and technique that I'm using right now to cut these are not optimal. Well, maybe not optimal. It's optimal for me, but it's not the recommended way to do it. But like I said, I've been doing this for years and I've never had an issue cutting myself because it's the most comfortable way to cut for me. So don't take this as a instructional how you're supposed to properly cut vegetables video, because I'm probably not the best example to follow. But this is the way that I do it. Now this technique for the onion though is a really easy way to dice an onion without any problems. You cut it almost to the edge going all the way across, and then slice it through twice going down the onion, and you should be able to dice it pretty easily without having to do any more extra added cutting. And it reduces tears. The less time you spend cutting an onion, the less time you spend crying about it. So it works out for me, but once again guys, do what works for you. Now the garlic has a similar tactic but on a much smaller scale and can be a little more difficult to do, especially if you don't have a really sharp knife. Most people just use a garlic press, which I should probably just get because it is much easier than cutting it like this. But once again, a couple slits down the long side of it, and then try to do like one little cut through the middle, and that should help you dice it up quite a bit before you have to kind of mince it with a knife, which is the technique that you see me doing now. You just kind of put it all together and then just kind of chop the knife up and down across the pile as much as you can to kind of reduce it as much as you possibly can. I've never seen anyone like perfectly mince garlic this way. It's very difficult to do, so just do what you can, guys. Next order of business, and I said in the video, the shorter video, that this was not mandatory, but I actually cut the chicken breast in half because the chicken breasts that I bought were pretty big. They were all actually pretty large. So just slice them right along the middle, try to be as even as you possibly can, and that's just to get them to cook quicker when they're in the pan. You don't want them to be too thick because it'll take much longer for them to cook. The next order of business is going to be to add the noodles to the water now that it is finally boiling. Like I said, guys, it takes a while for this new thing to kind of kick up. I'm still breaking it in. So you go ahead and add the noodles to the water, and as an added benefit, I added some olive oil. It helps flavor it just a little bit, and it also helps preventing it from sticking so much to the bottom of the pan. Obviously you should still stir whenever you can, but you know, if you can't pay too much attention to it all of the time, it's a pretty good tactic. And you know, some people say it adds a lot of flavor. I don't think so at all, but it doesn't hurt not to do. I mean, it doesn't hurt to do it, so why not? And once that's done, you go ahead and remove that from the heat and start the next process. Okay, so the next step is pretty interesting because you have options. What I decided to do was pan fry them, the chicken breast. cut them in half, season them with a little salt and pepper, and just pan fry them. But you are not limited to that. If you want to bake them because you feel it's healthier, you can do that. If you want to air fry them, air frying chicken breasts is an excellent way to cook them all the way through and to keep them juicy. So if you have an air fryer, you can do it that way. I just decided to do it this way for the sake of the video, but you don't have to. I added olive oil and butter there because that helps with the searing just a bit, gives it a little bit of flavor too. You just toss it in there, you sear them until they're done, and yeah, you'll be good to go. But like I said, this is not the only way to do it, so if you prefer other cooking methods when it comes to chicken breast, you are more than welcome to do so, because you're going to cut it up and put it into Alfredo the same way anyway. It's, you know, just whatever you prefer. Next, we're going to get to the vegetables. Same thing into the pan, butter and olive oil. I always do the onions first because they take a little bit longer to cook, start to sweat out, and start to brown. So we always do that first. I took some of the juices from the chicken and tossed that in there. They were from the pot that they were sitting in to give it a little more flavor ahead of time. Next order of business is going to be the mushrooms. You go ahead and toss those in there, mix them well, and make sure the mushrooms are well coated in the olive oil and butter that you put in there. A little more salt and pepper, mix that up really good, and then I add the garlic last because you don't want the garlic to kind of overcook, because things can get a little weird if you do that. So at least in my experience, I don't like the garlic to like blacken or anything like that. I just like to have that taste in there, and then once that simmers and everything kind of reduces down to almost a sauce-like consistency, you can go ahead and add the half and half. I decided at this part too, at the last minute, to add chicken breast, chicken broth, to add a little flavor, and to kind of even out it a little bit. You don't have to do that, as I said before. That's optional, and I didn't put it on the ingredients list, so you don't need to, but that's what I did because I like chicken broth. So that was the part where I just added it just right there to kind of even things out. The problem with doing that though is it can make your sauce a little thinner than you want it to be, so be careful with that, or at least use it sparingly. So what you're gonna see me do now is take the finished chicken and I'm going to cut it into kind of chunks and go ahead and add that directly to the Alfredo sauce. So that way that chicken flavor can start to infuse into the sauce as you finish it up. You mix it up really well, and that's why I didn't use a lot of seasonings this time around, because the flavors kind of all, this is the part where they all kind of come together, and the dish starts to kind of come into its final stages. And then lastly, you're going to add your al dente farfalle noodles. Just go ahead and toss those in there. They'll finish cooking up while the sauce reduces and everything, and at that point you're kind of done. You just got to keep an eye on it. A little bit later I added the cheese, Parmesan cheese. Some people don't like the grated stuff, but I like it added into there. It gives it an interesting texture, plus the Italian cheese mixture that I had before. It has all kinds of cheeses in it. Pretty much all the Italian cheeses are accounted for in that one bag, so it's really nice. I was pretty generous with it because I added the chicken broth. It made my sauce very thin, and I didn't want it thin. So to thicken it up a bit, I was very generous with the cheese. Plus, it tastes better, so that's what I like to do. But as I said, for you, however the thickness of your sauce is, that's going to be completely up to you. This last portion is completely optional. I don't know what it is about this addition, but I see a lot of people adding parsley as kind of a finishing touch. It does add a nice color to it overall and make things look nice, but from what I'm seeing, it doesn't really add to the flavor at all. So aesthetically, it does make the dish look a little nice and give it a bit more color, but honestly, I don't think it does much for the dish itself. So that's completely up to you. It's something I recently started doing for the sake of these videos. But as I said, your choice, because I don't think it does much. But that could just be my pleb chef mind. I know their actual chefs are probably like, what do you mean? And yeah, with that, you are pretty much done. I allowed the sauce to reduce just a little bit more before plating and serving. So if you're one to buy like the pre-made like Texas toast or whatever, this is an excellent dish with something like that. You can also do your own homemade garlic bread, which I tend to do because it's a lot cheaper and, you know, it just makes more sense. But yeah, it turned out amazing. I was actually surprised at how good this was. This is my second time making chicken Alfredo from scratch, and I feel like I did a good job. Hopefully you guys enjoy it too.